Todd, Ryan, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here, Scott. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Scott.
It's a privilege to have you guys on. I started listening to Why Theory years ago. I think after I reached out to you, Todd, I saw an advertisement somewhere for Only a Joke Can Save Us. That book was a huge book for me. And then I discovered your podcast and I listened. I became a huge fan. I've recommended it to other people.
I don't think that worked, though. I think you're still the only listener. So that's
Hey. So instead of only fans, you guys have only fan.
only fan.
Only
right.
fan.
I'm not putting you guys. I mean, you guys ought to see what you get when you Venmo for the premium content. It's fantastic. if you have a democratic socialist fetish, it's very, very intense.
It's very, very hot. Yeah, we lean into that pretty hard.
So you guys do this great podcast, Why Theory, where you look at sort of psychoanalytic, philosophical. You take a psychoanalytic, philosophical, existential sort of lens at life. I mean, you talk about movies, you talk about politics, you talk about all and everything in between. You've done several episodes on Christmas movies, right? This is the time of year. It's the season, the festive holiday season, and I just watched a Christmas movie recently. One of the ones that Ryan, I think you probably love. It was on Lifetime or something, one of these networks. I watched it. I watched it with a female friend, and it was interesting. They got together at the end after a circuitous route, and there was
it's very
Sturm
important.
and Drang. But tell me, you guys, you guys think you guys have an ideal type of a Christmas movie, right? Just because something's got elves or trees or consumerism or drunkenness or somebody copying their posterior, sitting on the office copy machine, their posterior getting Xeroxed at the office Christmas party, George Costanza having sex with the cleaning lady these things do not necessarily make a Christmas movie. Castration does. So let's start there. Let's just go with castration getting you into the holiday spirit.
Yeah, I'll go. So I think, right. So the idea was that Christianity is a religion of God, basically a religion of God's castration, right? So God ceases to be this figure of the pure beyond, comes down to earth, is now in human form, and then not only is human, but is the lowliest human, and then of course dies in the most humiliating fashion. And so the Christmas movie, interesting, this is what we found as really what defines the genre, as you say, that it does that same thing to the figure of the father. So not father literally, but some kind of symbolic father in the Christmas movie. Always we see them subjected to some form of symbolic castration, and so that our idea would be that if that doesn't happen, then that's not really a Christmas movie. So it's a way in which the definition, both of us think pretty strongly that a genre isn't just a grouping of films that share characteristics, but there's some kind of identifying antagonism or problem that every genre is defined by. And so if the Christmas film can be a genre, it seems to us that is essential to it. And then this other point is really Ryan's point, that it's and I'll let him talk about it, that what corresponds to that is a total absence of cynicism. So a real sense of belief that comes in those films.
Yeah, and just on George Costanza having sex with the cleaning lady, Scott, was that wrong?
Because
Was
at my old office, that kind of thing happens all the time.
all the time. Yeah, was that wrong? Okay, so
and it's Christmas, right? Because he says, any pass for the holidays?
Any pass? No. Okay. All righty. Yeah, no, so the Christmas television episode, we're going to have to do someday, but have not yet, so I'm not going to include my analysis of that right now. But yeah, Todd's right. So one of the things that I thought was really nice in your setup is that, like, you mentioned, of course, my beloved Hallmark films, and like one of the things that they do is people tend to think visually, is this complicated enough? Is this shot well? Is this acted well? That makes something a good Christmas movie. We don't think that. Those are aesthetics things that certainly have value, but we're kind of on the outside of that. So like Hallmark movies are usually pretty good about this. There is some like father or patriarchal figure. It's really funny because those movies particularly get wrapped up into being like these are like these movies are the chief export of patriarchy or whatever. And I just think people don't really watch them who say this. If you really watch them, what happens in almost every movie is it begins with somebody who is really down and crumbling under the constraints of contemporary capitalism, and they want to leave it to something that is not so cynical, that hits and feels true. And then of course it becomes very ideological because it's Hallmark, so it ends up being like a very ideological kind of pairing, because if Hallmark continued in the direction that their movies started, it would be Das Kapital. Like that's what would happen in their films, but they can't do that. It has to be something else.
I never feel more in the Christmas spirit than when at the end of a film I want to participate in a Marxist revolution. At that point, it's like let's roast some chestnuts and go assault the petty bourgeoisie. Like let's get it done.
Yes. Well, it's true, like on all these things, like saving the rec center, like a community coming together. This was, the point that Todd kicked to me is that like the Christmas film has a very vested interest in showing what cynicism does to a person and to a society, and then also showing what happens when we overturn it. And then something that we do, I think that there's a lot of different kinds of media that this happens to. I think this happens to children's films all the time, but it certainly happens to Christmas films. As we watch movies like this and we think, all right, well, that's sweet that the town came together for George Bailey, but that could never happen in real life. And so then this movie, this entire thing that we cried about and were really invested in for its anti-cynicism, we then have this like, well, that's like very deeply fictional. Oh, it's cute that the toys got together and they saved their friend, but no one would really do that in real life, that because the real world is capital. So it's nice that we got invested in this children's movie for 2 hours, but now we're going to go back to the real world and watch movies where we find out that people can change. Yeah, they can get worse. And I just think that we think that that's like a very like adult and like mature kind of a storyline. And I think it's deeply childish. So these films, I think like they tap into something that is very vulnerable, and we want to kind of like push it away because it feels like if we got invested in something like really materially changing our circumstances, emotionally changing like the way we relate to ourselves and to others, if we really got invested in that and it didn't happen, it would be far worse than if just regular shitty things happened under capitalism. So we just consign it to the realm of fiction. And I think the Christmas film is really good at beating that back.
When you guys were talking in one of your episodes on Christmas movies, you've done several, and I'll link to several of them in the show notes so fans can sit around, and maybe you'll get only fans now. You'll have like 6 or 7 listeners to these wonderful episodes, which I've greatly benefited from. You talked about, Ryan, you pointed out in one of these Hallmark movies that you loved, right? That this one woman is a music teacher. There's like a failed music program in the school or something. And you say that at the end, we can restore the music program because they all just needed moral betterment. There was no systemic failure. Like these things, there's never systemic capital. The system's fine the way it is. Everyone's just got to do a little bit more of their part to make the capitalist system work, right?
Yes. Yeah. So that film that you're referencing starred Leanne Rimes, and it's called It's Christmas Eve. Her name is Eve. So there's a comma in there. So yeah, I remember that film really well. That's what I'm talking about. That if you watch this movie for half of the film, you're like, oh my God, this film is identifying in a really understandable way, a really scrutable way for a really wide audience, exactly what systemic issues are like, and like how the ceaseless pursuit of profit, well, one of the things that it kills is like genuine investment in the arts, and that the idea that you can be more than just a worker, that you can have a life of the mind, that you can like express yourself in pursuits that like, uplift people differently, not through any kind of material means. Like that's like half the movie. And then it just becomes a morality play, as so often happens in Hallmark. So it's like but I think those films are really good for showing structure in a way that I think not a lot of Hollywood films even do as well today. But then of course, yes, it has to come around and it says we're just like not, if we were just better moral subjects, then we could better handle the system or better navigate within it. I think, Todd, you got something.
Well, I think it's interesting because that's even true if It's a Wonderful Life, right? Like the paradigmatic Christmas film. And Frank Capra was a conservative. Yeah. So you watch that film.
It was anti-Potter who villainized Potter, and so which is a strange thing, right? I mean,
right. It's very strange, right? Like you watch
because I imagine Donald Trump watching that. Potter seems like fantastic. I mean, Bailey's like he's sort of like a woke. I mean, he's like a white woke guy, right? Truman called it the Department of Defense, and like it's so woke. And then this guy he's fantastic. He has, like I did with Queens, and no blacks, right? He had no blacks. I just imagine Trump like loving Mr. Potter.
Yeah. So I think it like speaks exactly to Ryan's point of the critical dimension is there, but then at the end it's like, oh, all we need is to kind of get together I mean, it's a collective action, so that's kind of interesting. But it's not a collective, and I think that this is to underline Ryan's point. It's not a collective systemic action, right? Like it leaves the system in place, and I think that's really. I mean, there are Christmas films I think that don't do that do kind of at least metaphorically represent a challenge to that, but I don't think I think clearly It's a Wonderful Life doesn't, and clearly the Hallmark ones don't. But I think there are one. I mean, I think a movie like Carol, which we've talked about. I mean, that's maybe the best. I mean, it's not my favorite one, but it's pretty great by Todd Haynes. That one's. I think that one is more even though everything happens on an individual level, which is funny. It's actually more suggestive of systematic, like revolutionary change, I think, than It's a Wonderful Life.
Have you guys? Do you know the movie Family Man with Nicolas Cage?
Yeah,
yeah, we do.
I mean, is this fit in that genre in the sense of you do have the castration, you do have some abatement of cynicism, and you also have no like. In fact, it's like, okay, I'll take my skills as a cutthroat capitalist and I'll put it to work in a smaller capitalist system, and I'll churn the shit out of these sires, right? I mean, on some level, right? It's not as systemic. It doesn't shake up the system, but it is. You do see the castration, and there is humanization, and there is healing. There is real deliverance from cynicism, right?
Right, deliverance from cynicism, and certainly like that he's a figure who seems like I mean, castration. It's interesting, right, as a term, because I think it often gets interpreted as lack of power, but that's not what it means. What it means is lack of full enjoyment. And I think the beginning of that film is really interesting because it seems like he's awash in just total enjoyment, right? Like he is not a lacking being. Like he has women coming over to his place and then they leave before he wakes up, and it's like a male fantasy, right? And so, and then he comes to realize that, oh, well, wait, I was a lacking subject, even when I thought I was a fully non-castrated being. So I think that's to me the really important thing that film does. But then you're right, exactly right, Scott. The end of it, I mean, I like certain aspects of the end, and the way he seduces her is to say, look, we share the same fantasy. And I think that's a pretty great way to think about what makes a couple compatible, because I think we think, oh no, it's some kind of characteristic, but I think it's much more on a phantasmatic level that you connect with someone. So I think that's pretty great, that last scene at the airport. But you're exactly right. There's no sense of like, oh, capital is the problem. I mean, not at all. Like it's instead like, and I mean, there is I guess she's what kind of lawyer is she? She's
pro bono lawyer. Yeah.
Pro bono lawyer. Right. So I guess there's some sense of social justice or whatever, but certainly not like there's a systematic problem that we have to address.
Yeah. Scott, it's interesting. We're going to cover this on the next, we're not because you brought it up, but you'll never know this. We are actually going to talk about Family Man on the next Christmas White Theory episode. Unbelievable poll by you.
I love this because I have a friend, and she said, I was telling her that I was going to have this conversation I was quite excited about. And she said, would you please ask them about Family Man? So I said, which a movie which I love. So I thought, I'm working it in. Tia, this was for you. So there you go. If you listen to this, Tia, this was your contribution to the show today. Thank you.
That's phenomenal. Well, yeah. So I love Cage. I've liked that movie a lot since, like, I saw it a long time ago. So I haven't done my rewatch yet for the show. But it's important to look at obviously the castration as Todd points out in that film. And I think what's different about that movie, and is one thing is that to preview our conversation, there's this explosion of interest in the Christmas film at the turn of the century. And Todd and I we're going to save that for our podcast. We're going to try to postulate why that is, because the Christmas movie appears in Hollywood at different times. Like it's in the 40s, it's in the 80s, and then it's in the 90s into 2000s. And now, like today, there's a lot of interest in it, but it is mostly like what you might say is like small screen stuff. And like the big screen movies are fewer. You can name them, so there's not so many. So anyway, so Family Man comes along at this time. I think it's really interesting. We're like post Y2K. We had this like big .com thing, and what you have with this film that I think is really relevant for the current moment is if you translated this into 2025, you basically have a reformed tech bro. Not the like, not his what Cage's character is in that. That would be the current translation. So that would be my little prediction.
He's more
for
like a Mitt Romney there, right? I mean,
Yes.
but less Mormon-y, right? But he's
yeah.
hunting deals and he's taking companies. And as remember, Rick Perry said, I mean, you're not venture capital, you're vulture capital, right? He's like, he's vulture capitalism, right?
So and it's interesting, right? Like this film, like when Todd, when was it?
2000.
No. But how long after Clinton separated investment from standard banking, or sorry, made them come together? Because it's
I mean, he did that in the second term, I think. So it's
just a couple
years.
Just a couple years. So it's interesting, right? Not that you couldn't, obviously, Gordon Gekko, you have films like that, like Wall Street coming out earlier. So you could have still had that figure. But I do think it's interesting you have this figure in this film after that happens in the second Clinton administration. So you have this character who is, a synecdoche for the ills of capital, then moving toward someone who is a synecdoche for, more agricultural lifestyle in the suburban world, of course. And that is exactly the thing that gets like tarred about Hallmark films, is you have someone who's like at the top of their field, they're about to make all this money, and then they go like for like a simpler life. So the thing that is the challenge for all Christmas films is that it has to be doing something more than just that simple translation of like the immorality of being so tied to big capital and the morality of a simpler nuclear family kind of lifestyle. And I think that film does things that are a little bit more complex than that. And I think like Todd's on the path, the right path on that, is that like it is about sharing a fantasy that this thing, it's not strictly the immorality of big capital, but it is the immorality, if you like, of going so far away from your desire. And I think that might be something that we could say about Family Man.
Can you guys just say a little bit about two things that have come up already? And I think for people who are not, devotees of the show like me, right? Who live and who don't, not everyone is living and dying the show. They should be. Why theory? You should live and die this. But you guys use these terms desire and enjoyment a lot. I mean, and you're using them in ways that the average person at a coffee shop or at a Christmas party or something isn't using them. So could you guys just give the skinny on when you guys say desire and enjoyment, you're using that in a particular way. Could you just give me a quick take on desire and enjoyment and why that and how that plays into the genre of the Christmas film?
Right. So desire, you wanted to split? Well, so I'll talk about
split.
desire and you can talk about it.
Sure.
So desire is always unconscious desire from a psychoanalytic perspective. I think the best way to define it is to distinguish it from needs that we have. Like, so we have certain needs, like need for hunger, need for sex. Desire isn't that. Desire is what occurs when our needs get subjected to the language, to speaking. And so once they're subjected to that, then they get deformed and are unconscious forms. And then that's what generates our desire. And what's different about our desire than needs is that needs can be satisfied, right? Like I need to eat, I eat something, I've satisfied the need. The point of desire is that it's satisfied by I think that there's just a couple terms I think that are important. So it satisfies itself by not realizing itself. So it's not the object that you get that satisfies your desire. It's the act of desiring itself. And this is why everyone has had this experience that you get the object, and especially around Christmas time, because I used to cry every Christmas, not because I was disappointed in my presents, just because the time of desiring was over. And that traumatized me. And so the point of desire is to keep desiring and to find satisfaction.
So you're saying for the purpose of this kind of conversation, Christmas Eve is the epic of desire.
Yes.
Right.
Christmas afternoon is when you're blown out, shot, emotionally done. I mean, right? Like the whole thing is anticipatory.
Right. Exactly.
The wrapped present.
Right. The wrapped present is always better than the opened present. And I think the point of psychoanalysis is, in a sense, can you come to grips with that idea and see that the wrapping is actually the source of your desire, not the object that's within the wrapping. And so that idea, that difference is really crucial to how we understand desire, and also how we understand how one should try to conduct oneself, right? Like that, because if you there's a real tie, it's probably obvious to people, between believing in that the object will bring you the satisfaction and being a good accumulating capitalist subject, right? Like if you think, oh, it's the object then you're going to constantly seek more and more and more and more, right? But if you think, oh no, it's the obstacle, it's the wrapping, then more isn't going to be the answer for you.
It's the I think we talked about this last time I was on the show. Did I want the iPhone or the box? This is 2 years old. I got another one.
I have the
I got
iPhone.
another one.
I have the newest iPhone, the 17 Max Pro, whatever. I have the box. It's sitting in the closet.
Of course you do. Yeah. I mean, we don't
I have all the boxes for all my everything on my desk right now. It's all Apple. I have all the boxes.
I have a really special box. I just got this thing. It's a video game system that is meant to perfectly recreate the Nintendo 64. It's called the Analog 3D. It's very difficult to get, made in limited quantities. And I've got that, and I got the box. It's like behind me somewhere, but we don't have time for this. So yeah, so the limit on something, that's a very important psychoanalytic concept. That you're desiring the limit of the thing and not the thing itself. So okay, my thing was on enjoyment. Scott, I'm going to ask you a question. What is your favorite snack?
Gosh, this week? I mean,
sure. Yeah, great.
I mean,
perfect answer.
So
Perfect
yeah,
answer.
It's funny. I've lost all this weight, right? I've gotten in great shape
Nice.
this year. I've lost a ton. I've gotten a lot stronger. I'm like James Bond coming out of the sea right now in Casino Royale. But
Casino Royale. Nice.
Can't I go to the grocery outlet, this discount grocery store. I can't stop buying like candy, like Sour Patch Kids, the little sugared ones, the little thing. I buy these nerd balls. I buy gummy bears, and I put them in this drawer. And what happens? I sometimes wake up in the middle of the night. If I wake up, to use the restroom, I combine them. I say, "Oh, I'm going to take 2 of the Jolly Rancher things and 2 gummy and roll them and put them in my mouth."
All right, amazing. Okay.
No, I go directly to psychoanalysis. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
So listen. So the reason I asked that question is so everybody, whatever your favorite snack is, or your favorite food, the chances are you always have more of that than is healthy, or what the nutritional, you have more than the serving size. You always have more than the serving size. If you only have the serving size and you are being militant about it, that is the thing that you're looking for. I'm going to get to this in a second. So having more than what is good for you or what is recommended, that is enjoyment. So enjoyment is always in, kind of like Todd was talking about with the idea of need, always in excess of need. It is always to the point. I would even push it is like it has to do you a little bit of injury. Obviously it's not the same as doing you having your Jolly Rancher sandwich is not the same as doing massive amounts of cocaine, but they partake of the same, it hurts you a little bit. Smoking is the best example of this, is that the reason why, and not to make smoking cool as shit, but why people, it's not because people don't know enough. It's not because people don't know enough of how bad it is. It's not that they've never seen the blackened lung of a person who died of lung cancer. It's no, smoking it's not just a physical addiction either. It is that it feels life-giving as it kills you. Yes. And that's enjoyment. Yes. And so that when we say enjoyment, that's what we're talking about. And it doesn't have to be smoking. It can be candy. It can be whatever, this thing done to excess, and excess is variable. It doesn't negotiable. Yeah.
Right. You can also excessively avoid sweets, right? I think that's what's really interesting about what Ryan was saying, right? My in-laws, or my mother-in-law especially, excessively, and so she excessively avoids anything that's bad for her. But she turns that into this thing of avoiding excess can be excessive and can be the source of enjoyment. I was just going to say, what you said reminded me of 2 great directors died this year, but David Lynch, when he died, he said, as he was dying, but in the days before, he said, I'm dying of smoking, but it's the thing that I enjoyed. So it makes sense that that's the thing that also killed me. Yeah, so he was perfectly aware of it.
I enjoyed tobacco, and there's a cost for that enjoyment. And it's lung cancer. Yeah.
When you guys when I first understood this, when you guys helped me frame this, it completely explained the 2016 election to me. You cannot enjoy Hillary Clinton. Right. I mean, she is eating your peace, right? She is probably going to get up early in the morning, read all the policy books. Trump is doing you self-harm, right? Voting for Donald Trump is, you think, this is going on a binger, right? Or dying of, it. And there's an enjoyment to it, I think, for a lot of the country, right? The enjoyment of voting for this person that is undermining your interests.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the things, every time CNN places this all the facts, like 29 lies in Trump's speech. It's like, what are you doing? Is that part of the Trump campaign? Because for exactly the thing that the reason you're saying, Scott, just a little interesting. I'm not comparing Trump to Hitler, but as Germany's war fortunes got worse.
I mean, Hitler read books, to be fair.
But Mein Kampf is a terrible book. So if Trump, I know Trump didn't write any of his books, but they can't be as bad as that. But as their war fortunes fell, his popularity rose. So I think that really makes this enjoyment point. It really brings it home. And I think and that seems to me like a key thing, like that the part of it. And I mean, maybe the term that Ryan didn't use, but that is implicit in what he was saying is sacrifice. Like you sacrifice for your enjoyment. And that's why people can even go so far as to sacrifice their lives for smoking or the most obvious thing is you enjoy your nation. And so that's why people are willing to go out and die for their nation, because that's the source of, maybe the fundamental source of their enjoyment, right? Rather than, it's interesting. Reading a little article about these, sorry to make this so contemporary, but about these heroic people in Australia who intervened and a couple died trying to stop the shooters. And it's interesting, like because I think you have to, if you're going to say, well, it's enjoyment in these terrible things, you got to bite the bullet and say, okay, it's still enjoyment in these other things too. And I think that they enjoy their courage, right? Like they enjoy their own, which I think is great. I mean, I think more people should enjoy their courage, but I think it's still the same kind of structure at work, even when it's things that we think are terrible and it's things that we think are pretty great.
So homeostasis is the sort of copacetic things. That's the enemy of enjoyment, right? You've got to be at certain extremes or some sort of deleterious stuff. Your being's got to be taking a hit to some degree.
Right. I think it's one way I say is the way we give ourselves trouble, right? Like we trouble ourselves. Yeah.
You know the Oscar Wilde quote, everyone always does the first half and they don't do the second half, which is all things in moderation, including moderation.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So you all are insistent. There's been a debate for decades as to whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie. You two weigh in on yes.
Yes.
So tell all the people out here that are saying, no, it's not a Christmas movie, why it is, why you two would draw a line in the sand and say, yes, it is unabashedly part of the Christmas movie.
Todd, can I?
Yeah.
Take the reins on this one?
I was going to turn it over to you. Yeah.
Can I be the Argyle on this argumentative limousine? Okay, so so it's a Christmas movie. Look, there's Christmas music throughout the film. I'll just not go into it first, but to zoom out, Die Hard 2 and 3 take place on Christmas. Those are not Christmas films. They just are films, action films, heist films that take place on Christmas. Die Hard, the first one, this is a Christmas film. It does not just randomly take place on Christmas. Christmas is, obviously it's a Christmas party. Why? Like the entire setup, you've got this couple, this it has at the center of it, this film is almost like it's an action film of remarriage. We had comedies of remarriage in the Screwball era, in the Code era, and part of this was a way for filmmakers to negotiate the restrictive nature of relationships imposed by the Hays Code. So you had two people who have already had a relationship together because they were previously married. So it's okay for them to have already had sex and for that to be like part of their whole, relationship. And the thing about the comedy of remarriage, and this is very important about Die Hard as well, is that the two people have to fall in love again. You have to find, and this is what Todd was talking about, Carol, is you have to know that someone is a unwrapped present. You have to know everything about them, but you have to find them again a wrapped present. Okay, like, so how can you find someone a wrapped present again? How can you find that person that way? That's at the center
that is
of
so
Die Hard.
I just want to say that is beautiful. And I wonder if I once heard he was a Christian guy who was a psychologist, and he said he'd been married 7 times to the same woman, and he was saying that they were all death and resurrections, right? That there's the newlyweds, the parents of the toddler, the empty nesters, and he was talking about rewrapping there was a rewrapping and a rebirth in the relationship, that they had to sort of see something that died, but the death of that thing, and I guess the couples that can't do that, wind up breaking apart, right? The present can't be rewrapped, but you see couples that can actually do this sometimes, right? I mean, you can rewrap the thing
Yes,
and reconnect.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that. That's beautiful, actually, I think.
I mean, that's that's at the center of Die Hard, and it's not in 2 or 3 or the other ones. But John McClane and Holly Gennaro, like finding each other through this highly traumatic action scenario, finding a way to find each other, to be vulnerable and to be like a rap present again, that's a core part of Christmas films. Like someone reveals themselves to be a certain way. Maybe they've been lying to you, or they've been, or whatever, to try to gain someone's favor. Like I'm thinking about, what is it? The one of the other films we did last year, Todd, the
Happy Season.
Happy Season. Yeah, Happy Season does this as well. So there are other films. Okay, so that's just a huge part at the center of it. Then, aesthetically, as I said, music, Christmas music all over the place. It's a Christmas party. At the end of the film, it does this classic thing. So it's an office building, right? And I don't see people comment on this as much, but it's blown up, and so there's paper falling from the sky, that's snow in Los Angeles. Like, that's what that is meant to be. And Holly and John McClane are finally together, and they kiss again, or maybe they don't, they kiss in the car, but either way, like, they get together again, and it's snowing, just like at the end of any of these Hallmark films, where they put in the CGI snow and then the characters kiss, because this is the legacy of the screwball. Kissing is sex in a screwball comedy, and dialogue is foreplay. That's because these are things that had to get around the code, but we still have that. Something that is, again, you see this in every Hallmark film, is that it's snowing and the characters are together. They are the kinds of people who have been transformed, so they can actually be together. They can actually be the people they need to be to finally be together as the snow comes down. So that aesthetically, that works as well. And now I think the big thing that I'll have Todd talk about is the castration of the father, which I think is made literal in a number of scenes in the film.
Right. I mean, the fact that he doesn't have his, this is one everybody remembers from the film, right? That he doesn't have his shoes on. So he's constantly confronted with this limit that he can't, and it's interesting, because there's certain ways that it helps him, but not directly, right? So, and I think and he's doing it to feel better. He's doing it, he takes off his shoes to feel pleasure. And it is initially, I don't know if people remember, it's initially pleasurable to him. He's like, oh, the guy was right. Like, this thing, making the balls with your feet, that really helps. And then it becomes this terrible thing that he did, because it really puts him at a disadvantage relative to the what are they? They're not terrorists. They claim to be terrorists, to the heisters.
He says, Asian Dawn. I read about
in Time magazine. It's so funny.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Rickman is great. But then, I mean, there are a couple of things, right? Like, in order to finally get free, when Gruber or Rickman has a hold of Holly's hand, he has to take away the nice watch that she got for working there. So that's important. I mean, the things that are objectionable about it is she takes his name back. I mean, there's certain retrograde aspects of the film, I think. But all in all, I think, and of course, the other thing is,
and there's no systemic critique, right?
Not at all.
Big company.
No.
She stays with the big capitalist company.
Right. Although the owner is dead.
But he is dead.
The owner is
dead.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think that,
but he'll be replaced.
Maybe the most objectionable thing about the film is the way, and this is true about Family Man too, the way it treats racism, right? Like, the way so the black cop is a castrated figure, but then at the end, we see him he learns to shoot his gun. He's killed a kid, right? And so he learns to
kill again.
And so, and we're supposed to celebrate that. And so I think that seems to me one of the points where you could even say, oh, it's not a Christmas film, because there's this final affirmation of the non-castrated guy in Al Pal. But I think that would be unfair. But I do think that there's little problems with the film that just like we talked about, the lack of systemic critique, and the way those points are crucial to the way it, I think, misses the mark.
And the bloody the bloody feet, the cuts on the
right.
feet.
The cuts are crucial. Right.
That's a crucial kind of the castration side of things. So that, like, it's almost like if you were going to do an image of our point about the castrated father, it would be like John McClane and his his bloody feet all cut up to make
Right.
that
If we
point.
wrote a book together about the Christmas film, I mean, we'd have his foot
That-
would be on the cover with a
Yeah,
cut, with a
probably.
piece of glass in it. Yeah.
It's pretty
You know,
good.
it's so interesting. I want to read you this quote that I was thinking of today before we came on. This is from This is from the former Pope Benedict the 16th. He's always Ratzinger to me, and this is when he was Cardinal Ratzinger.
That's a Billy Joel song, right? I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. You never laugh. It's bad for the sinners and down with the saints. I did karaoke last night. I actually sang.
Nice.
I sang it badly, but that's fine.
That's yeah.
So I forget where I came across this, but I think about this a lot. He says Advent, which is, of course, the several Sundays on the liturgical calendar leading up to Christmas. He said Advent is concerned with that very connection between memory and hope, which is so necessary to man, the most profound and basic emotional memory within us, the memory of the God who became a child. This is a healing memory. It brings hope. And I was just thinking when you're talking about the bleeding foot, right? And the castration of God, right? And the impotence and the self-emptying, the abject, the capacity to take on finitude and frailty. And that just is amazing to me when you're thinking the bloody the bloody feet. For Ratzinger, I think the thing would be it takes you into this memory that God had feet that could bleed. And this is a primal echo that you remember at Christmas.
It's great. No, that's really great, Scott. I mean, I think that it's like this is where Todd's point about the Al Powell, the Reginald Vell Johnson character is really, really good, because you have like one of the big, contemporary divisions in religion is you have either like Christ, the like warrior who will kill. He hates all the people you hate, like this figure, this evangelical figure, right? Like, so and that's a figure of fullness. And then there's this figure that, like, Todd and I like to, whenever we talk about Christianity, we like to pull it back to this, like this child, this vulnerable child, and this, this God that could bleed. And I just think, like, Die Hard nicely has this tension woven into it, which is that, like, it is really vulnerable. It is difficult to have the vulnerability of the father so on display in the film, and it's just a little bit easier to just kind of have the ideological smoothing out and just have the fullness of the cop rediscovering that he could, kill somebody. Because that film, like, I forget why am I forgetting the name of the bad guy, but like, who comes back for that one last scare.
Oh, I don't know his name either.
But it doesn't, like, narratively speaking, all that it serves is to just do that storyline to bring it back, which is unnecessary. It is like it, and this, like, Slavoj Žižek makes this really nice point in Plague of Fantasies, is like, when you see something, particularly at the end of Hollywood films, that's completely unnecessary, that's where, like, ideology is, like, inserted to kind of like smooth out some kind of bump. So, like, if you remove that moment from the film, I think, like, you're left more with, like, human frailty, in a way that is really vulnerable to accept. But then you have this one last action moment, and it's almost like you can now forget. You don't have to think about, like, that there might be some theoretical point in Die Hard. It's this action film that has a happy ending.
You
and
feel good.
It's all
The
okay.
guy got his mojo back. He blew someone away.
Exactly. So, like, that's crucial. That's a nice line.
Which is why I think if you want to watch a Christmas action film, you should watch 3 Days of the Condor, because I think it doesn't. Its ending is really better than that. I think, like, it's better in every way, but I think the ending, there's this great moment where and there's a group of carolers singing "God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen," which is and Redford, as he's walking away, he walks behind them, and then there's a freeze frame, just an amazing ending shot. But the last line is, how far can you walk if they don't print? Like, the New York Times he's given a story about all this stuff the CIA's done. And the CIA guy goes, his name is Higgins, is Cliff Robertson. He says, how far can you walk if they don't print it? Like, how do you know they'll print it? And Redford just says, they'll print it. But then he's walking away and you're not really sure if they're going to print it. And so you think, like, oh, there's finally going to be some justice, everything's going to be, but then this guy, the CIA guy, introduces this whole question. It ends up an open question, and you end the film, you're kind of like, well, it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to work. So I think that ending is so much better. I like Die Hard quite a bit, but I think the ending of 3 Days of the Condor is so much better than that, and it really, I think, hits all these Christmas ideas as well. And it also shows a couple that can come together only momentarily, but then it can't be sustained, which is also kind of
highlights the structural point, because it's really like it's a systemic. It's not an interpersonal reason why the couple in 3 Days of the Condor can't be together. It's a structural, systemic thing. So highlighting that as well.
It's much more a structural critique, like so many of these films from the 70s were, right? Like they just in a way that once the 80s came around, that disappeared from Hollywood.
I'm curious. So you all talk about, when you have conversations about Christmas movies, you say that there's this, that Christmas with the sort of castration of God and the narrative of vulnerability, right? This is a great book by William Plaker called Narratives of a Vulnerable God. I mean, it's such a great book title. But this is sort of, it just smacks right at the heart of the interior logic of capital and capitalism. And yet the irony is the whole celebration of the thing is the capitalistic orgy, right? So at the heart of this thing, right? And you see this play out in the films too, right? I mean, that there's this beauty, of a narrative of kenotic self-emptying is always against the backdrop of capitalistic orgies, right?
Right. No, it's absolutely true. And I think it's really interesting how the Christmas film tries to counter that and critique that, but then it's very seldom that the film fully turns against that, right? Like I think Condor's one. I think the great film Shop Around the Corner by Ernst Lubitsch probably is another one. Christmas in Connecticut, I think, probably is another one, which is a class, kind of as Ryan was saying about the screwball comedy. I think Christmas in Connecticut is a Christmas screwball comedy. So there's some
and one of the last screwballs too. There's like
it's really late.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. That's right. So I think there are some that manage to stay on the one side of the ledger, but I think the seduction of that orgastic capitalist universe is pretty strong. I mean, it's the two sides of Christmas, right? Like the getting the gifts, and then the other side of like this of coming together in a non-cynical way. So I think I think bear that out usually.
Yeah, no, good. That's a good comment by you. I think those films, especially Shop Around the Corner. God, I don't know if you've seen it or
I have not. This is I'm making my list.
Oh, it's really great. So
it's really great.
It was remade in the 90s as You've Got Mail.
Okay.
So but there's
this is Jimmy Stewart's in Shop Around the Corner. Yeah.
Big Jim, that's right.
Do you want to do a little Jimmy Stewart for us?
I'll do it in a second. You know what? I'll do it in a second. I told my students in a class. I said, "Did you know Jimmy Stewart killed more Nazis than any actor in Hollywood?" And one of my students said, "In what film?" I was like, "Film?" I was like, "In World War II." Like actually in World, which is true. This is true. And he would always tease John Wayne about this because he never went to war. Anyway, talk
about the whole Al Powers thing, right? I mean, the whole thing, right? Like that, and you've got to hear the hero of It's a Wonderful Life is a killer.
He's a killer.
He's uncastrated. He's kicking ass. He's killing Nazis. He should have been Harrison Ford, like in Indiana Jones, right? I mean, you're not.
Your money's not here. It's in Bill's house, and it's in this Glock I have, and I'm gonna blow Potter away, and then we're gonna dance
you're gonna
on his
wish you
grave.
couldn't spell Normandy.
So in Shop Around the Corner, one of the great things about it is that there's a very dark sequence where it looks like someone may have killed themselves. It's very dark for a Christmas film, and it has this two people fall in love, like You've Got Mail. They don't know who each other are, and they're not. It's really interesting what You've Got Mail does to this is that it makes the division between the two characters literal and financial, whereas in Shop Around the Corner it's the ideological difference between these two people who think that they hate each other. And then Jimmy Stewart's character finds out he's been corresponding with the person who he at work who thinks he's terrible. Like he figures it out a little bit sooner than she does, and he realizes all of the things that he and she that they hate about each other are exactly the things that they actually love about each other. And I think that it's so Christmas films are really good at putting that in the relational aspect of the movie, but this thing that we're talking about, this push and pull of the desire of the unwrapped present and then the orgy of the unwrapped present. Christmas films don't always nail that contradiction, and it's more, one is just sort of the end, and then the other is the anticipation that leads up to it, and we can kind of celebrate both equally. But if we're trying to make this, this structural critique, like that line that, that I quoted, like that from It's a Wonderful Life, your money's not here, it's in Bill, it's in Bill's house, like that thing, that is like, that's a really great structural comment in that film. Like that, look, we don't have your money is part of the community. Like it's that's how we've built this whole thing. Don't start thinking about your money individualistically in this moment, because if you do, you will lose community. It's a beautiful moment in that film. That's why it's also so funny to reference, and so quotable. But that is, that's not like, it's almost like, could you imagine an It's a Wonderful Life that ended on that kind of vibe, and not the community coming together to save one person, which happens a lot, or to save one thing. But really, could you imagine a Christmas film that ends with the community recognizing they're already implied in the community they exist in, and the idea is not to grab more individualistically, but to invest, you have to use capitalistic language here, but to invest more in that very community they're already a part of. I mean, I think it's hard to think of a film that's done that, but I mean, I think a film could, if the genre was, if people making the movies, I guess, maybe thought of them as like theoretically rich as everyone in this conversation, everybody listening thought they had the capacity to. I think that they could, but it's, certain genres are where like the serious art and the intervention happens, and other
the
things
theoretical
are
guys don't. The problem is that's not what makes money, right? What makes money is somebody saying, "Wait,
Yeah.
shouldn't we have the black cop shoot somebody at the end? He's lovable,
That's true.
And wouldn't
Yeah.
we just love to see him shoot?" Yeah.
Wouldn't everyone
What
feel
about
good?
that prick? What about the prick that was hanging with the chain? Okay, what about that prick? What if he's not dead, and then the black cop that puts asses in the seats? I mean, it's not reading Hegel, right?
It's true.
That's
Yeah.
That's
Well,
just
Scott,
how it goes.
It's sort of like the I've said this on our podcast before. It's like, what did Hollywood learn after Me Too? It's people just like, okay, so what you're saying is, if the woman's on top, it's fine, and if the guy goes down on her first, it's okay. Is that what I'm hearing? Got it. Like,
but in the reverse order, something's wrong.
Something wrong. Got it. We can work with that.
Excellent.
We're not going to change anything structurally.
Excellent.
We're not going to make sure that predators don't rise to the top on the very back of their predation. No, we'll just make sure that visually it doesn't look as problematic. Got it. We got you, kids.
Sensitivity. I love it. I'm learning so much today. I wanted to ask you about something, this theme that I was thinking of, that I think of a lot at this time of season. There's this great passage in the 8th chapter of the book of Romans where Paul says that the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the children of God. And then later in verse 21, it says that the creation itself will be set free from its enslavement to decay and will obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. And then it goes on to say the whole creation has been subject to groaning. He actually says it groans as it's been suffered through these pains of labor. And I think about this, there's this sense that Paul has that somehow there's ecological disruption, that human beings, humanity's relationship with the natural world is something that's exploitative. And it's interesting that he can see this, right? And he thinks somehow the Christmas story, the story of the incarnation, does something to rupture this. And that there's this, and I think of all these songs where, like, Little Drummer Boy, you have the oxen ass kept, you see that, like, that somehow the animal kingdom realizes that in the self-emptying of God, there's a hallowing or something. That I wonder, like, what role does the relationship with the natural world play in Christmas movies, or does it?
Well, I'm trying to think of one where there is this direct relationship. I mean, they do seem very urban, right? Like, it's
right.
I mean,
Well,
there's.
Todd,
I mean, I guess,
Todd, it's Frosty. When we were talking about
Right.
we like the Hollywood film, it's the 40s and the 80s, but like in the 60s and 70s are all the the great animated stop motion animated films. The Jack Frost being like bang on 1979, and then those movies don't happen again. And that this is the stories of like the misfits of Christmas. And I do think that they're like, I think Jack Frost and Frosty are like.
well,
nice
Rudolph
ecological-
too,
and
right?
Rudolph,
I mean, Rudolph,
you go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting point, Scott, because I think that there's a way. I mean, just to me, the notion of castration is really important, because I think that, like, what you read about Paul, what he seems to be responding to is this sense of mastery over the world. And I think that most ecological destruction occurs with this sense of mastery over the world. And I think that that's why this embrace of castration that the Christmas film endorses seems really important to counter that, because it's all about the non-mastery of the subject, not the subject's mastery. So I think that that's, to me, that would be the fundamental point. And I think like if you're not in a position of mastery, then you're no longer in this exploitative, like, the earth's just there for me to exploit, the animals are just there for me to exploit, and you're not at their level, but you're kind of brought down to that, to not at that level of like the master and the whatever, everything else to be used.
Yeah, everything is an instrumental, right? At
Right,
that point,
right,
that
right.
you're in a different kind of relationship.
Yeah.
So a lot of the country is discouraged right now. I think that's pretty fair to say. And then last night we had the fascinating exercise with these Christmas trees. I don't even know what that was, but it's one of those things you couldn't. How could you satirize that on Saturday Night Live? Because the whole thing was like satire of itself.
Right.
I just thought, wow, this is hilarious. I'm watching it. This is like, I can't believe everyone's just not like it is a sketch. But people, I mean, part of Christmas. I mean, I think people tune in to. I mean, you talk about really beautifully in your podcast around these films that there is real salvation from cynicism. And I wonder where you would tell people to turn, that people have a little bit of time, they're stealing away, they're drinking a little too much enjoyment. Maybe there's these relatives they can't stand, right? Like cousin Eddie's outside, shitter's full. I mean, you have all these things that happen at the holidays, right? That it's funny because the stress level, it's just so interesting. It's supposed to be some kind of respite, like, and in some sense they get these moments, right? But then the logic of capital goes on and grinds you into this holiday grind and all this stuff. And people are looking for deliverance, right? From cynicism, from the capitalist rat race. Where would you put, like, you say, okay, look, you've got 2 hours, of uninterrupted peace. Where would each of you steer them if they've got that 2 hours for the holiday on screen?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so first thing I would say is that, like, I think a lot of the so the economic stress and the tariffs and the war on Christmas being perpetrated by the right on our wallets and the capacity to see each
I
other.
say tariff. It's my favorite word. It's so fascinating because first off, I thought all of his favorite words were adverbs. Strongly,
Yeah.
powerfully, beautifully, very beautifully, and strong. And I was like, I just don't imagine anybody in human history said tariff is my favorite word.
No one's, Scott. Like, I try to be a student of history, and Todd, maybe you can correct me if you can think of any examples of this, but a lot of fascistic authoritarian leaders have tried to do bread in circuses. I never known one that tried to do bread in circuses where you couldn't afford bread and the circus was the government. Like, I don't know one that tried to make that work like that. Anyway, so so those things aside, I do think that one of the things that gets at you at Christmas is the idea of the perfect Christmas. What I think I would ask people to spend at least a portion of those 2 hours to be like, what actually is your perfect Christmas? Because the images might come from things that are outside of you, but like really just like think about it. Like, what is the thing that you want to do? Is your perfect Christmas a bag of expensive German biscuits and you're in your pajamas and you're watching Hallmark and like you're actually not, you're off? Like, is that it? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what it is. I think that the pressure to have a certain kind of thing, and then the pressure to make it look like a movie is also something that I think we do to ourselves that is not necessary. And it's easier for like deep cut knowledge about Todd and Ryan. Both Todd and I have aphantasia, which means we don't have mental images, and so it's a lot. I find it a lot easier to my wife says it's my superpower because I never have an image of what something we're going to do is before we do it. And so for her, if something goes wrong, it's disappointing. To me, it's like, that's just the way it is. And so it's like, so she tries to be a little bit more like me. I try to be a little bit more like her in like trying to think about like how fantastical this thing might be. But then if it doesn't turn out to be that way, to try to like cede to what the materiality of the situation actually is. So that would be for, I don't know, for 10 minutes, think about that. But then for hour 50, I hope I got the runtime on this proper. I might not, it might be over a little bit, but we've already said some things that I would have said. So I'm trying to say a movie that we haven't done exactly. I think I'm going to default to the Shop Around the Corner. I think is really beautiful. And I think that it does, it gives you two things. It gives you what's really beautiful about the Screwball, and it also gives you what's really beautiful about the Christmas film. The thing that's beautiful about the Screwball is that there's this this transformation that happens that I think is one of the ways that the Screwball overlaps with the Christmas film. So one of the things that is at the center of a lot of Screwball comedies is what in Shakespearean studies you would call the green world. So this is a term that comes from Northrop Frye. Shakespeare comedies often have these moments. Midsummer Night's Dream is probably the most famous one. We have characters, their lives are in like a state of flux. They're under pressure from the urban world and from society, and they just want to get away from it all. Again, we say this is like the standard Hallmark thing. Well, it's the standard Shakespeare thing. And what they do is they abscond not to the rural, but to the forest, to the woods, to usually like a nameless, like area, either through some magic or just through the release of societal constraints. They get to practice things that they couldn't in society. So this is where like a lot of gender switching like happens, and characters fall in love with characters who they're not supposed to, and things like that. Because the thing about the green world is it's this zone. There's this great line in As You Like It. One of the characters asks what time it is, and one of the other character replies, "There's no clock in the forest." And that's not just like, a stupid little comment. It's just like, no, time, it doesn't exist here in the way that it exists in the urban world. You're loosed from it. So, but here's the thing: you cannot stay in the green world forever. You do eventually have to leave, but you leave having been changed. So can you sustain the change that you undertook in the green world? And I think that's what's at the center of of the Christmas film as well. As like, Christmas is the season where anything can happen. It's very green worldy, but then it's over. Can you sustain the change that you undertook in the Christmas season, the season of giving afterwards? And I think that Shop Around the Corner integrates that idea in its, for all of its characters, actually, and not just the central relationship. So that'd be my pick to click, and those would be my ideas to click in the holiday season.
That's pretty great. Because Ryan was searching for a film that we didn't mention, so I'm going to mention a film we didn't mention. So
Nice.
We both love this film called Holiday Affair. It's with Robert Mitchum and Janet Leigh.
Oh, great film.
And it's really a kind of unseen film. People don't know it, but I think it really speaks to what Ryan was just saying, which was great. And it also nicely, I think, and this again was a point that he was making, shows how the imperfections are really central. That's what constitutes the perfect Christmas, right? So there's a lot of imperfections that we see in that film, and that's what makes it perfect. And I think a lot of times what makes the holidays worse for people is they think this isn't what it should be. And I think that one of the things that film does is show that there is no what it should be, and there only is just how it doesn't fit with that. So I think that would be the one I would say, just because it's kind of off the beaten path, and people don't know of it. But people also know of Christmas in Connecticut. I think it also does the same thing. And it's one of the great feminist films of all. I mean, especially of classical Hollywood.
It's also great if you're someone who knows Double Indemnity, and that's how you think of Barbara Stanwyck. This is her involved in a comic deception is really, really delightful to see in that movie. So that's quite good.
Gentlemen, you guys are fantastic. Thank you for your podcast, Why Theory. I would encourage all my listeners to subscribe. It's a fantastic show. I benefited so much from it. And I love especially your Christmas movie episodes. Thank you for doing them, and thank you for spending some time coming on the show talking to me about them.
Scott, thanks so much for having us. Always just an incredible pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Scott. This was
Pleasure was all mine.